Hello, Internet friends. It's Mike Cottrell with another episode of the CMYO podcast. I am here with part 3 of my series with Rob Yoho from Sandler Sales. Rob is going to talk to us today about measuring, iterating, KPIs, and other jargony words that may go over all of our heads, but they will make sense by the end of this because Rob is very good at sales and he will teach us how to be better marketers by holding hands and singing Kumbaya. As always, we'll do it in 15 minutes or less, or my nameless producer will give you double your money back. Let's get into it. Rob.
Yes.
Brought you in.
Yep.
Day 3 here in our podcast room.
Yep. Thanks for having me again, Bob.
Yeah. Happy to have you sleep behind the desk last night. Keep this conversation going. So I was talking to my nameless producer before we do this segment.
Yep.
He mentioned we did a good job talking about the funnel. But one thing I want to spend some more time on is we talked about the funnel, how it doesn't always come through clean. There's some side doors on that funnel. It isn't just 100 leads equal 10 closes. There's 30 that maybe get kicked out the side door, need to come back up. So I want to start talking about some KPIs and metrics from both of our worlds.
Okay.
From my world, on the marketing side, we always talk about the MQL. It's going over to sales. Mm-hmm. A percentage of these go over to you. From your world, when you get MQLs, before we talk about the side door, what are you measuring for your clients so you can go to the C-suite?
Yep.
And what are you measuring maybe sales rep by sales rep to see individual performance?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we had alluded to this before. Not everybody's recipe is going to be the same.
Yes.
Right. So it's, we would call it a cookbook. Right. So different recipe for different folks, just depending kind of where they are in their career. But when coming from MQL, it's all about behavior. Mm-hmm. So how many proactive outbound dials is a rep making on a daily basis, right? And at the end of the week, right, your sheet says you did 50 or you did 75 or you did 100, whatever that number is. But then the dial to contact ratio. Somebody like me that's been doing this for 20 years, I don't have to do a ton of dials. A lot of my business is coming to me. We do have that marketing funnel kind of trapped, and my close ratio is going to be higher than somebody that's got 5 or 10 years under their belt, right? So that's where the ratios are just a little bit different. So dials to contacts, contacts to appointments. When I start to see a gap in contacts and appointments, we probably need some phone work. We probably need a better questioning strategy, right? The data doesn't lie. Then appointment to presentation. Now, this one's interesting because a lot of times C-suite, if I'm sitting with a CEO or a sales leader and they're like, well, why wouldn't we just present to everybody? Well, then we don't have a very good qualifying process.
You're not pushing enough people out the side door of that funnel.
Right. They need to, we might have to exit them. Maybe they haven't earned the right to see our candy and all the cool things that we do. Mm-hmm. And then presentation to close. Now, there's another one that's a little bit more Sandler-esque. Let's say that you and I might have a really compelling conversation, but it's just not the time.
Yep.
It's not a no. It's not a yes. It's not a think it over. It's a clear, well-understood future commitment. And I'll say it again, clear, well-understood future commitment. If it's call me in 6 months, that's not very clear.
Not clear.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the timeline's clear, but the commitment is not.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And if the business development rep can put some structure around that and really understand, one, why we're hitting the pause button, and with a clear idea on how to behave in this gap of time, and then come back to marketing and say, hey, we're going to hit the pause button, right? This is still relevant. I'm going to keep it in my pipeline. We need to stay relevant with the prospective client in this amount of time.
Did you hear that? You only have 10 minutes more that you have to be here because there's another appointment. So
thank you.
And maybe that's your appointment. I don't know. So I think a couple of good things you said there that I want to touch on the marketing side and the B2B marketing side. There, at each one of these steps, to me, it would seem there also needs to be clear communication with marketing of that eject.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about the eject button before, meaning calls to connection down. Sometimes you're going to connect with someone and go, you know what? It came through an MQL. We're now going through this SQL process. They're not qualified. They're not qualified. Budget, timeline, whatever it is. So I think it's important for our marketing audience to know at this point, we have to have a good recatch, right? And that the side doors of the funnel and then back into the funnel of Rob said not for 6 months because of these things. Can we nurture him on these things? Can we keep this conversation moving forward, right? So it would be really important, I think, as you're going through those KPIs, that marketers have KPIs of how's that look on our end? Mm-hmm. How many of those that were MQLs that were turned into SQLs got turned back into MQLs? Which can happen. I think that's what's missing for a lot of people is the SQL never turns back into an MQL, but it could.
Well,
right?
and now that we're talking about this, you made me kind of think about something else. There's also times where somebody that's on the decision-making team, right? So if we're thinking B2B, typically there's multiple decision makers, influencers. What we've also found is sometimes when one of those influencers leaves an organization and there's a new chess piece on the board, sometimes it's a great time to go revisit that opportunity because it could have been one or two people that maybe threw a wrench in the solution. And if we do throw them back over into that MQL, so really understanding when there are those organizational shifts of those chess pieces, it might be a good time from a business development perspective or a marketing perspective to stay relevant.
A fun little nugget here that we've worked with people on that you just brought me to is one thing I always like to do with sales teams from the marketing side is we have an email list and, say you kick somebody back and that email list is ongoing. When we get that bounce or that email is no longer there, letting our salespeople know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a trigger.
Right. Yeah. 100%. It's a trigger. And for good or bad. Right. And sometimes it's an unfortunate thing. It's like, hey, this person's in the pipeline. We send them an email and they're gone. Now they're gray mail. Right.
Yep.
Uh-oh. But sometimes it's, hey, we haven't heard from these people in a while. And Bobby just left. Bobby 2 Deals is gone. So maybe it is time to reach out. So I do think, again, I know we've emphasized this a few times throughout this pod series, but like that sales marketing conversation and being willing to go, this is an SQL, let's push it back. Let's throw the fish back over our shoulder to marketing to keep the conversation going. I think that's mission critical.
Yeah, totally agree.
What else are you measuring in your reps? You talk about the behaviors and understand where you are versus if I hire a BDR today, you're not in the same spot. But what are you looking for in the behavior progress over 6, 9, 12 months from someone?
Well, because we're impacting the sales structure, sales process, naturally we're eyeing up the close ratio. Right? We're looking to see a couple different things. One, when people enter the funnel from a SQL perspective, how much time is that taking? What we should see, right, the way that the Sandler process works is we should start to see that time shrink. Our sales reps are asking better questions. We're qualifying harder and faster, not aggressively, and make sure that
we're not car salesmen in this way. Nothing against car salesmen, but that isn't a one-time sale; it's a relationship sale.
Yeah, so we're not aggressively selling, but we're qualifying harder. So if we are presenting, our close ratios should naturally go up because we are being more selective of who we present to, because we have these qualifying markers like pain, budget, decision.
Yes.
With a commitment that when I present my solution to them, I'm going to get what we're all looking for, which is an answer. And really, I mean, it could be yes, which would be awesome. We all want new clients. We want new logos, right? We want new accounts. Or it could be no, and no's absolutely fine.
Those are great.
Those are great.
There's nothing worse on the marketing side. I know this is true on your side. There's nothing worse on the marketing side than a bunch of people in the pipeline who are maybes.
Yeah.
I hate a pipeline that's a bunch of proposals out.
Now, the other thing I will just talk very quickly, and it's less about the metrics, but it's when you talk about like pipeline bloat, let's call it. Why is that happening? Right? Our conviction a lot of times is only as strong as our pipeline is full.
Yes.
Right? And if I got a lot of things going on, they're really good opportunities, I'll ask really hard questions, right? Because I would need to pull opportunities out. If I have only a couple opportunities, well, now I'm white knuckling.
Yes.
Right? I don't want to push people out, right? Because I'm nervous, right? If I got 4 opportunities, I lose 2.
Yeah, I believe you introduced this phrase to me many years ago, but it's happy years.
Yeah.
Right? We
100%.
get these salespeople who have happy years, not just making this about sales, because sales and marketing, but I meet salespeople who have happy years and they go, well, Rob said, if I call him again and then the thing moves and if the mountains move and the timeline moves, then maybe he'd say yes. Yeah. And so I'm going to keep him in this stage of the pipeline.
Yeah. We call that hope.
Hope, yeah. And hope is great for MQLs. And I think, if you and I were doing a service to people, it would be teaching them to push us back to the MQL state and be like, if he's a firm maybe, that's great. He should get our email. He should get our product updates. If his email bounces one day, I should let Rob know. But I do think we should let them go in that way too. A yes is great. A no is great. A return to MQL, I think, is that third door of the funnel to say, nurture them more.
That's right.
and maybe they'll come back to us. Is that fair?
That's fair.
As we talk about measuring sort of sales activity and even at the individual rep versus the C-suite level, a story that comes to mind is you and I shared a client at one point. They did great stuff, but essentially you sort of culled the number of salespeople on the team. It was when we started working with them, they had 4 sales reps. They were doing about $10 million. Today they're like 18 million and they have 1 sales rep. This is 1 superstar. You identified it. We saw it too. How do you sort of make that decision and go, hey, we're going to ride with this superstar and maybe change the way we're doing things based on what they're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we inspected the data, and here's what the data showed us. We had 1 rock star, right, that is experiencing double close ratio versus the other handful of sales reps. And so we started to question why, and we started to really understand, and it was a him. So we started to understand his process. And he was emulating all of the things that Sandler teaches. And we inevitably pulled some levers. And, why channel the energy the way we've historically done it? And this company had been around for a long time.
Yeah, well established, yes.
And kind of stagnant. And when we kind of pulled those levers and channeled the energy to the individual sales guy, I mean, they just exploded.
And what was interesting on our end, riding the coattails of a really strong salesperson, is the way he was doing things, we adjusted our tactics. Didn't change our strategy, right? Same persona, same audience, same score. But he was one of the better sales reps we've ever worked with on giving us quick feedback on leads in HubSpot. And this is the right one. And so sometimes we'll push back, say, well, you got to work it more. He would do a quick no for us on his MQLs and say, this isn't going to be sales qualified, because he knew what he was looking for. And so we changed our tactics, and to the point of how the funnel works and what we're putting in, less total leads, but we really knew what he liked and what he could work. And the business almost doubled with 1 salesperson. Yeah. It's an unbelievable story.
Unbelievable story. And it was just through communication.
Yes.
Right? Sales is talking to marketing. Marketing's talking to sales. We're adapting our strategy. Like when we think about all of this, right, we're testing theory.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? What's working, what's not. But when there's not that communication between the 2 departments, left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Yeah. I run a $10 million manufacturing company. I want to improve the marriage between my sales and marketing today. Marriage takes a long time. Relationships are hard, right? I have a work marriage with my business partner. I have a marriage with my beautiful wife, Claire. They take a lot of communication, a lot of commitment. But if I were to improve my sales marketing marriage today, what's one thing you think sales could be doing or asking of marketing?
I think it's a really good question. So I think salespeople typically, right, type A personalities, strong opinions.
Sure.
Have a little grace with your marketing department, right? And
we would love that.
Start to look at it from their perspective. And vice versa, the marketing team really, it's almost if we could just take a couple days and spend time in each other's shoes to understand it takes a lot of power from a marketing engine, right, to get people to fill those forms out, to get those MQL leads, right, kind of into the top of the funnel. And on the flip side of that, if marketing really understood a day in the life of, right, and the constant rejection, right, sales is a violent sport, right, and every day, right, there's bullets flying and we're getting shot and kicked and punched. You have to have a very strong attitude, right, self-perception of yourself. If we just both could understand a day in the life of, I think we would get along a lot better.
I think that's a great takeaway, the day in the life, the ride along with. And I would just say, that is not easy for marketing's ego or sales's ego.
It's not.
But I'm happy to have you on the pod because you're a great friend. You're my sales guy. I'm your marketing guy. And the way it works is you and I spend a lot of time communicating.
That's right.
And I've learned so much from you over the years. I've obviously been Sandler trained, but I find myself channeling you on the marketing side all the time, accidentally giving sales coaching because of working with you. So I do think if there was one takeaway, it would be a little bit of kumbaya, sales and marketing coming together. I don't know that any other sales and marketing guys are ever going to get to be as good friends as you and me, but I think that they should aspire.
They should.
So, my friend, thank you.
Thank you
for being on the podcast and for sharing a day in the life of a Sandler sales guy.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thanks, Rex.
Thanks for having me.